The biological influences soil forming factor also plays a role in soil formation. There are two main types of vegetation we get, and they are dependent on climate. We either have trees or we have grasslands. The soils we get underneath trees and forests are very different than the soils we get under grasslands. Trees and forests tend to give us soils with less organic matter, shallower topsoils, shallower B horizons, and a shallower soil in total. But it does tend to give us more horizons to look at. A grassland, on the other hand, tends to give us a fairly deep, dark, organic matter rich A horizon, a deeper B horizon, but the horizon differentiation in a grassland is much less than under a forest. So you have fewer horizons to look at under grasslands. The biological influences soil forming factor includes vegetation as well as all the other organisms that live in a soil. So things like the fungi, the bacteria, the actinomycetes, the insects, everything that lives in the soil is part of the biological influences soil forming factor. Vegetation is extremely important in soil formation because the energy, the organic matter that the whole system needs to function comes from vegetation. Plants photosynthesize sunlight into chemical energy, and that chemical energy is what supplies all the other organisms that live in the soil. The biological organisms in the soil also are important for moving soil particles around. They help create soil structure. They create the glues and resins that stick soil particles together into aggregates, and aggregates are very important for keeping large pores in the soil and small pores in the soil, which in turn helps with water retention and water drainage and airflow and various other properties of soils. The biological organisms in a soil also affect the pores and the size of pores. An earthworm is going to create a fairly large pore going down through the soil. A root is going to create pores that go down through the soil. And those pores are very important for drainage as well as for aeration of soils. The organisms that live in the soil are also responsible for creating organic parent materials. When we look at a swamp or a marsh or any wetland, there's a lot of biological activity there. There's a lot of plant material. There's a lot of organic matter being added into that system. Eventually, a lot of those marshes and swamps will fill up with organic material and create an organic area, an organic parent material that soils form from. So the biological properties, the biological influences in a soil play a big role in soil formation. We get different soils under different types of vegetation, and those biological influences are going to influence or change the soil that we wind up with and what we have to work with later on.